What is up, my photographers and videographers? I hope you guys are ready to learn today. Grab your coffee, let's do this. Today, we are talking about how to charge for your photo and video work. This is a big deal for a lot of people, and they don't have it on lock, especially if you're a beginning photographer or you've only been at it for a while. This can be really confusing, and there's a lot of people out there that are telling you different things on how to do it. So I'm gonna break it down so you actually know how the pros do it. There's 3 things that you have to think about whenever you are deciding how much to charge your client. The number 1 thing that we all have to think about is shooting time. You know what shooting time is. Obviously, that's the amount of time that you're actually gonna spend on the photo shoot or on the video shoot, right? So what are things that you should consider whenever you're thinking about shooting time? Well, first and foremost, every photographer and videographer needs a typical hourly rate, right? So how do you determine that? Well, that's gonna be determined on skill and experience and which part of the country that you're in, but I'm gonna give you kind of like a window of what you're gonna typically see. You're typically going to see a range from $75 to $200 an hour. And I know you might be thinking, oh, whoa, Tyler, I'm new at this. Can I already be charging $75 an hour? And the answer is that's actually not very much. This is typically the bottom of the barrel. So I would start here. What we're gonna go over in the next couple options to come, that's really gonna help hone in and bring in the $75 mark. If you don't feel like you're at $75 yet, by the end of this video, I think you're gonna feel a little bit more comfortable to get there. So anyways, shooting time. How long it's actually taking you to do the shoot and how long it's gonna take you to travel to the shoot. Some people question, they say, well, do I charge based on mileage? Like how long it takes me to drive or how many miles it takes me to get there? Or do I charge legitimately like a cab does? As soon as you get in the car, now I'm gonna start the meter, it takes me 15 minutes, or if traffic is extra long, it takes me 30 minutes, whatever, that's how much I'm gonna charge you. So I'm gonna say it's based off of time, and that's gonna link back to your hourly rate, okay? So if it took you 30 minutes to get there, boom, it's gonna cost you half of whatever it was. So you're just gonna do the math on that. But there's your shooting time. That brings me to our very next thing, and that is editing time. Okay, check this out. Editing time. Okay, how long does it take you to edit a shoot? You need to know these numbers. And I know if you don't have a lot of experience, it's kind of hard to know that because you're still in the learning process. So every single time you edit, it's almost like doing it for the first time.
First time.
Because you're learning so much. But over time, you'll figure out a style and a way that you like to edit photos, and every single photo shoot should get faster because you immediately apply those settings. If you want to cut down on your editing time, because we know time is money, then you need to create presets. And so presets, I'm not talking about like how you batch edit all your photos. You put a preset on them and boom, you just send them all out there and then they're done, right? No, we don't do that. But we do create presets based on things that we do every time that we go to our editing workstation. So if you like your photos contrast to normally be like 10% or 25%, or you normally are like crushing the highlights, whatever it is that you like in your style, you need to have that already preset up as a jump off point for your whole entire editing session, right? And you need to charge based on how long that takes you. When I first started off, it could take me 4 or 5 hours to edit a simple family photo shoot. But now I'll edit a family photo shoot in 45 minutes to an hour. And that's because I already know all the things that I'm gonna do on it. We have photographers out there that are not charging based on time, they're charging based on project. They're saying, oh, well, you know what? My senior photo shoots normally run about $150. Family photo shoots normally run anywhere between $300 to $400. My weddings are between $1,000 to $50, you know, whatever. But we shouldn't do that anymore. We should charge based on our time that takes us to shoot and our editing time. And the next thing, the last thing, possibly the most important metric of all is equipment cost. Check this out. I'm gonna say equip cost. What do I mean by equipment cost? All of your equipment at one point in time, you had to pay a retail price for it or used, whatever, but the amount that you paid for all of your equipment, this needs to be redeemed back to you. You consider your equipment cost an expense, okay? And you need to make up that expense. You need to pay for that expense. So how are you gonna do it? You're gonna do it by charging the client a depreciated value based on the full value. So let me explain to you how this works. So let's say, for instance, you're shooting on a 5D Mark IV and you paid $2,400 for it. So if you paid $2,400 for it, over time of using that camera on every single shoot, after a while, your camera will start to wear out and it won't work as well. Think of the shutter in a camera like the transmission of a car. The shutter only has a roughly estimated lifespan on how long it's going to last. And like a transmission on a car lasts 250,000 miles, so does a shutter on a camera. Typically, the amount of shutters that you're gonna get out of a camera is anywhere between 200 to 250,000 actuations of the shutter. So what we wanna do is we wanna depreciate the value of our camera based on shutter actuations. So we need to know how much does it cost for every single shutter click. And then we need to figure out on every single shoot, how many shutter clicks am I using on this shoot? That's kind of a crazy number because whenever you're out on a shoot, you're not gonna be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, and you're not gonna count actually what it's gonna take. So what I've done is I've done all the math for you for how many shutter actuations you're actually gonna have on what types of shoots. Is it a portrait shoot? Is it a landscape shoot? Is it a commercial shoot? Is it a wedding? And how I've done this is every single time I do a new shoot, I take all the photos that I took on that shoot and I bring them into my workstation and I highlight them. I right click, click info, and I find out how many photos did I take on that shoot. And that's how many shutter actuations that I had on that past shoot. Well, over time, because I've done so many, I've been able to get an average of how many shutter actuations I'm gonna have for what situations. And that's how I developed the model for how to price based on your shutters and how to depreciate. I've created these numbers already for you. I'm not gonna go over them because at the end of this video, I'm gonna actually give you that math, but I've created those for you so you don't have to do it yourself. So let's look at this from a bird's eye view total up. You have a Canon 5D Mark IV, you pay $2,400 for, you depreciate its value based on the shutter actuations, and then you get an amount, let's just say for a family shoot that takes you 2 hours, your rental cost for the client can be $35. You wanna eventually be able to replace your camera. After your camera craps out at 250,000 shutter actuations, you're gonna need to replace that. Well, is that money gonna come straight out of your pocket, straight out of your bank account? Well, sure it is. But every single shoot, you create a depreciated value and you include that in the cost for the client, like this $35, and you put that money in a separate account, an expense account, or an equipment replenishing account is what you could call it, or something like that. That $35 over 3 years when you need to replace your camera, if you've done a bunch of shoots, boom, you're gonna have the money in your account every 3 years to buy brand new gear, right? So that's why you always depreciate the value. You could say, well, this kind of seems a little bit ridiculous. Well, no, this is how the pros do it. Let's think about if they're making a Hollywood movie. If you're making a Hollywood movie, do you think that, you know what, whenever somebody calls up Universal and like, I got a script and I want this movie to be made, how much is this movie gonna cost? And Universal says, well, you know what, for a movie like that, we generally charge right around $11 million. No, absolutely not. What they're gonna say is they're gonna say, okay, this is the equipment that we're gonna use on your shoot. This is what it's gonna cost to rent all that time. Then this is what it's gonna cost for you to get a second shooter, for you to get a DP, for you to get costume and design and blah, 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 blah. And then you almost have like an itemized look at what it cost you to actually create that film. Well, you need to do the same thing for your photo shoots and for your video work. So now that you have your depreciated value for your camera, we need to also get a depreciated value for all the other pieces of equipment that you use on that shoot. When somebody's like, well, why did you charge me $400 just to stand there and click a button for like an hour and a half? Like that seems like a little too expensive. Well, by the time they see how much time you have invested in shooting, how much time you have invested in editing, how much money and time that you've invested in your equipment, they're gonna understand, okay, so this is what I'm actually paying for, right? There's no questions inside their mind. And so you got your MacBook Pro, you got your camera, you throw a lens in there, and that cost you $2,000. Eventually, like we seen with the camera, let's say it ends up depreciating out to $35 there, it ends up depreciating out to, you know, $42 here, and then ends up depreciating out to, you know, $22 there. So what ends up happening is at the end, you're going to add up all of these values and you're gonna include that in the cost, so that way you can pay yourself back for all of your equipment and the client is gonna take care of it. And if you do this, guys, I promise it's gonna change everything in your business. Now, I know whenever you get to the equipment cost, but there's a lot of math that's involved, but don't worry. What I've done, like I told you before, is I've created all the numbers for you already. I've put them all together so you don't have to do the math, and I have created a photography pricing calculator. I know you're excited because now you don't have to do the math on all this stuff. It's gonna be automatically done for you. You take this calculator and all you have to do, I have a space for what you're gonna charge hourly. I have a space for how much time it took you to edit. I have a space for how many images you're gonna deliver or how long is the video that you're gonna deliver to the client. And I even have spaces for all of your equipment. So you can put in what you paid for that piece of equipment and my calculator that is gonna do all of the background math for you. It's gonna depreciate all of your equipment and everything and put it all together and come up with a final price. It's gonna save you time, and we know time is money, right? Because if you have to do this math on every single shoot, like it becomes a pain in the butt, which that's precisely why most photographers and videographers are trying to just come up with a round number for this type of shoot and that type of shoot, because they don't want to do all this math. What ends up hurting them in the long run is whenever they don't do all this math per shoot, then they realize that they're paying out of pocket for all of their expenses and they should be charging a little bit more. Now, I want to give you a gift because you stayed and you watched this free training, and it's clear that you want to start pricing your photography and your videography the way that the pros do. And like I said earlier, time is money, and I want to show you that I respect your time and for you spending it here with me today. So I'm going to give you the photography pricing calculator that I normally charge $99 for. I'm going to give it to you for only 20 bucks. That's right. That's 80% off. It's just because you watched this training, and to show you that I truly do respect your time, I'm going to throw in the videography pricing calculator for only an extra 10 bucks. So you're going to get both calculators for less than $30. That's a $200 value, and it's only available because you watched this training. So don't miss out and click the button around this video, enter in the promo code PHOTOTRAININGCAMP, and start pricing your photo and video work correctly right now.